part where I'm supposed to do a toast. So, yeah, thank you. So they asked me, do you want to do a toast? And I said, do you want me to? And they said, yes. So, yes, I wanted to do a toast. So, let's start kind of when Paul and I met, which was 1996. I don't look old enough to be drinking alcohol. This is actually Pepsi right now. But, so we met around 1996. It was the summer. Paul had just joined Army ROTC. I was all of a sophomore in Army ROTC. Jeremy, who is not sitting where he was. There he is. Probably getting some beer as well. He was also in ROTC. And so we were doing this thing called Ranger Challenge. And so pretty much Paul and I met that way and became fast friends. Skip forward a few years. I was a senior, so I had finished something they call advanced camp, which is what you do right before you get commissioned and then you join the real Army. And we had to evaluate the people that were a year behind us. And I got paired up evaluating Paul. That's kind of awkward, right? So you got to evaluate your friend, and you're like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. And you're like, yeah. They don't really ask you. It's the Army. They don't care about your feelings because you don't have any. And so I was like, well, let's see how this goes. So ended up, it went really, really well. Do you remember what I evaluated you for?
I'm sure you evaluated me more than once, so...
You evaluated me many times, I'm sure.
That's an outstanding answer. He's a career officer. He has a lot of wiggle room there, right? So, I never made it to be a major, so I had to give like kind of straightforward answer. That's a good answer. I would just give like a, this is going to get me in trouble answer. So right, it was a reactive sniper fire. I still remember it. It's battle drill number 5.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So he did really well, and so he executed his immediate action steps correctly, and that worked out really well. So it's a potentially awkward situation. It wasn't, and that's good. So a few years later, actually Paul was in Iraq, and that was kind of probably also an awkward situation. In fact, it was kind of a scary situation. I found out after the fact. I caught him from around 2005. I was getting ready to go to Korea. He had just come from Iraq, and he didn't know, but he was getting ready to go back to Korea. His vehicle ended up hitting 2 anti-tank landmines. 2. So he was in an infantry fighting vehicle. He was a scout platoon leader. Scout platoon leader? Right. And so this is something that was designed to, this mine was designed to kill a big tank, and he was in a much thinner skinned vehicle. 2 of them, 2 separate occasions, and managed to live. So that was scary, really awkward situation, and managed to survive. I think it was divine providence. That's kind of my guess. But so made it through that. So then into 2005, 2006, we were both in Korea, and we were saying things like, "I'm getting out of the Army. I mean, this is an awkward situation. The Army is an awkward situation." So along the way, we had some things that kind of help us clear our minds. So we were asking lots of questions that young officers asked, things like, so is Johnny Walker green label scotch better than black label scotch? Yeah, and I know it's precious, but we were kind of young and naive and we didn't know better. And so we had to kind of see if that was true. And we ended up finding out that blue label is actually better than either one of those. So, it's true. It's true. So, lots of learning, lots of awkwardness and whatnot. But 06, I got out. I was done. And you got out about that same time, 07, 06? I don't know. Good enough for
you. May 2nd, 2006.
Yeah, 13 October 2006. So, great. So he got out, and he was living in a place called Bucyrus, Ohio. That's right, I spell it now. Yeah, Bucyrus. And I was living in Dayton, Ohio. And so we still kind of hung out, and he was living in this small, middle of nowhere town, working for a company called Timken. They sponsor someone named Danica Patrick back before she was doing NASCAR. That's the only thing they really had. And you want to talk about awkward? I remember we were having this conversation. I said, "So what'd you do? What'd you do today, Paul?" It was like a Friday night, and I drove over to see him. It's like, "What'd you do today?" He's like, "I had to tell somebody that they needed to change their diet because they were belching too much at work." And so we had this conversation where he was like, this ain't working for me anymore.
And he weighed about 400 pounds.
Right. And that's the polite company story, okay? There's a different version, but yeah. And so he ended up going back to the National Guard pretty shortly after that. Into the Army, well not back to, into the Army, National Guard this time. And that worked out really well for him. So this guy right here ended up making major early. So, you know, the military has something for every kind of possible inevitability. So what they call it is getting promoted below the zone. So he kind of got promoted below the zone, because to make major you have to have generally a master's degree or higher. And so this guy gets promoted like double below the zone, right? And speaking of awkward, so I'm now a captain in the Air Force. I'm a psychologist, right? So I had to get my doctorate degree, right, to get back in the military. And I'm a captain, right? And this guy's a major, and he has no master's degree, right? And I tried to get him to go to Sally Struthers Online University. And that's right, TVVCR repair is still a very relevant major. But, so yeah, there's that. And a situation that wasn't awkward, but again, you never kind of know, right? I was at some type of conference, because you got to do this politicking stuff to get stationed where you want to, and blah, 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 in D.C. And Paul had been dating some girl for a while, okay? And it seemed to be going pretty well. Before this time, he had been kind of dating some girls off and on, right? You know, kind of like duds. That happens. So this is the way all you ladies would say that. Well, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince, right? That's how you ladies would say it? Maybe? Anyways, that's my best guess. So he found someone, and it seemed to be working out okay. And I'm thinking, so here's a good friend of mine that I like to hang out with, and you're like, man, I hope I like this girl he's with, right? And you don't say that out loud, but you're like, man, I hope this works out. So I ended up meeting her, and you guys are like, well, why are you toasting Kendrick? You're supposed to toast the best man. Well, so here's the thing. If you're toasting your best man, you want his best woman to be someone you like, right? Or you're toasting the groom, you want to toast, you know, the bride, and you want that to be a good situation. So yeah, it went really well. In fact, she ended up giving up her room and like sleeping somewhere else, so I could sleep in the bed, because she wouldn't be sleeping on the floor, because she was like super nice and really polite. And she had driven, I think, 5.5 hours from her job to come see Paul, and I'm sure she was like, yeah, let's spend our whole weekend with your friend Lewis, who's out of town. Let's do that. No, it's not. And so the good thing is that I can toast not only my good friend and also my superior officer, Paul, for his outstanding judgment in his new wife. So, where's the ball? Great job. And now